James with Tidewater Management Group. Just want to say thank you for attending with us today. If you would just be patient, and we'll be starting here in just a few moments to give everyone time just to get logged on. Okay, good morning, everyone. I have 10 a.m., and so we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar this morning. There may be a few people that are still trying to log in, but this is Ronnie James with Tidewater Management Group, and just want to say thank you for taking a few moments of your time to spend with me this morning. And this should take about 30 minutes, give or take. But there is a question box. If you have any questions, if you would please just type in your questions, and I'll try to address them today as we go through our webinar. But I wanted to say I hope each of you had a very successful, very good AEP season. Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, that things are going well for you in your life. And now it's time to start getting back into selling mode, time to start thinking about what I want to do with my 2016. How can I be more successful? How can I be busier in my business? And so we want to introduce the Raw series today. And what we want to talk about is real and workable techniques that will help you to be more successful in the selling career. But today, people insure their cell phones, their laptops, their computer devices, their pets, but they often fail to insure their health and their well-being. So today, what we want to talk about is critical insurance and cancer plans, because we feel like that there's a strong market for that going forward. Now, this is my quote for 2016. Continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential. Winston Churchill said that. Now, basically what I take out of that is grit is greater than ability. You know, there may be some who are blessed with more brains, more natural talent, and better looks maybe, but nobody's going to outwork me. That should be everyone's way of thinking. It's in the sales industry. Everyone that works in insurance, if we will go in with that type of determination and that type of attitude, then we have the ability to make 2016 the best year that we've ever had. Because what we have to remember is it's a numbers game. And so we have to continually be working, seeing new people, talking to new people, uncovering new facts. But I want us to be about grit this year, be about effort. So if you'll just remember this, I think it'll help you tremendously as we go into 2016. Studies show that 75% of people who find out the facts about critical insurance find the concept appealing. 75%. Now, the first critical illness plan was sold in 1996, so the concept is still relatively new to people. And studies show that there's only about a 5% penetration rate on this product. So many people have heard of cancer plans and have had cancer plans, but how many people have ever heard of critical insurance? Most people have not heard of that. And so there's a vast majority of people that have not heard of it, that have not purchased this plan, that are potential clients. And so we need to realize that in this market, there's a lot of people that we have the ability to see that we can talk to that have never even heard of this type of product. But the first thing we want to talk about is cancer, because the need for cancer insurance is already there. As an agent, we don't have to try to create a need. People realize that the need is there, because the statistics here show that 95% of cancer patients claim they've had medical insurance, yet 1 in 4 said it paid less than they expected it to pay. You know, these are stats that we can use when we sit down and we talk with people. The American Cancer Society states that nearly 70% of associated expenses in relation to cancer are non-medical. People don't think about that. Sometimes people think, well, I've got good health insurance, which is important to have. However, you know, what about the things that medical insurance won't cover? Things such as travel, things such as deductibles, things such as hotel stays, you know, that their family may take, you know, things that may be experimental treatments. So mortgages that maybe have to be paid, you know, when you're out of work. So there's a lot of things that need to be protected that are not directly related to the cost of care that can be crippling to an individual or to a family. Now, I know a lot of us on this call today, we work with Medicare recipients. So I took some information from your general Medicare population, but, you know, we also are expanding, and a lot of people now are working in the ACA market. So I wanted to incorporate both of those into this. And generally, all Medicare Advantage plans have a 20% coinsurance on Medicare Part B drugs and chemotherapy. So when you start thinking about someone who has to have chemotherapy, that maximum out of pocket, that MOOP, is easy to get to if they're having to pay 20% on those chemotherapy treatments or on those Part B drugs. Most of the plan's MOOPs are going to be somewhere around $5,000. Obviously, $5,000 to $6,700 is the maximum that a plan can have at this point. So there's a real potential, there's a risk there for that client. And I always try to tell my clients whenever I sit down with them that in a Medicare Advantage plan, that Medicare Part B and chemotherapy drugs is one of the things that can push them towards that max the quickest. Also, for those of them, patients that may be taking Part D drugs, as most of you know, there is still that coverage gap or donut hole, which can be very costly for individuals when they fall into that. And those chemotherapy drugs that are given out as Part D drugs now can be very, very expensive. And people have to reach that $4,800 max before the catastrophic coverage begins. So there could be a real need for some money to help pay for those prescription drugs during that time as well. And a lot of groups and individual plans are having higher deductibles, higher copays, and higher maximums out of pocket. What we're seeing from a group standpoint is that a lot of the employers are passing more of the responsibility on to the employee. And of course, in the ACA, sometimes people are finding that it's not as affordable as they thought. And because we've seen price increases through the Affordable Care Act, we're seeing some individuals having to take higher deductibles than maybe what they've had in the past. So there's some risk out there. And when you're looking at things to be concerned about, cancer accounts for nearly 1/4 of all deaths in the U.S. So when you're looking at that 1/4, now I live in North Carolina, and I live in Rowan County, and in our local newspaper just this past week, there was an article that said cancer is now the #1 killer in 22 states. And North Carolina just happens to be one of those. Now, Aetna, GTL, Humana, Medico, they all have good cancer plans if that's all the consumer's looking for. But for just a few dollars more per month, the customers I like to call the big three, which are cancer, heart attack, and stroke. So I don't want to dwell solely on cancer insurance, but there are some individuals that's their primary concern, and it may be that that's the only thing they can get, because some individuals may have already had a stroke or may have already had a heart attack and can't get the critical illness plan, but may still be able to get the cancer plan. And, this type of plan is like all other insurance. You buy it with good health. Now, you pay for it with dollar bills, but you buy it with your good health. So what we want to do is make sure that we find people that have a need for this. And everybody knows somebody who's been touched by cancer. That's the reality. There's nobody that can go out in the public and just talk to someone at random and ask them if they've ever known anyone to have cancer, and they'll get a no answer. It just doesn't happen. So the nice thing about the critical illness plans is that there are several of them that do not ask height, weight questions or tobacco questions. So when we start looking at that, those are some contributors to some of the cancers and heart attacks and strokes. So they're relatively easy to get issued, and that's important to us as an agent, because as we write business, that's all nice to put the ink on the paper, but we don't actually take care of our client or get paid until the policy's been issued. So we want to make sure that we're writing good business. Right now, studies show that 1 in 2 men and nearly 1 in 2 women will get cancer in their lifetime. Cancer is no respecter of race, gender, or age. So you don't have to be old to get cancer. It happens to the young as well as the old. And in 2015, which were the latest studies that I could find, there were over 1.6 million new cases diagnosed in the United States. 1.6 million people. And of those, I wonder just how many of those had a cancer plan in force. Because you'll hear stories of individuals who wish they would have bought after the fact. I've met with my individual clients that have had cancer within the last 5 to 7 years that would love to be able to purchase a cancer plan, but unfortunately their health won't allow them, because with most plans you have to be cancer-free a minimum of 10 years before you're able to get one. So it's important that we get to these people before they get cancer. Another stat that I found that really blew me away was that the ASCO in a 2014 report stated that cancer cases are expected to increase by 40% between now and 2025. So that's a prediction, but 40%, with cancer already being as prevalent as it is, it's only going to increase. And of course, the study goes on to tell why they think it may increase, and a lot of it is the added ingredients in our foods and things of that nature, our weight, things of that nature that will catch up to us. But 40% increase is tremendous increase. So there's a real need for these products. So therefore, as I was mentioning, you don't have to create a need. The need is really there. We just have to make people aware of that need. Stroke, the second of the big three I want to talk about. And although stroke risk increase with age, stroke can occur at any age. In 2009, 34% of people hospitalized for stroke were younger than 65 years. So it's not just happening to those that are 65 and over. This is happening to the younger individuals as well, because stroke is the third leading cause of death in the United States. So again, I mentioned it's the big three: cancer, heart attack, and stroke. And whenever we meet with people, As a rule, it's not a matter of if one of these three are going to happen to you. It's more of a matter of when is it going to happen to you. Approximately 795,000 people will have a stroke this year in the United States. So we're getting close to 1 million individuals who will have a stroke in 1 year. And stroke is the leading cause of long-term disability in the United States. In any given year, 15 to 30% of stroke victims will become permanently disabled. Permanently disabled. So when you're talking about writing a policy for someone on a critical illness, it may not be enough, no matter what we write, they're permanently disabled. However, it gives them time. And sometimes when someone's going through a health crisis, that's really what they need, is to be able to buy time to make good decisions, because we know that time is going to be of importance to us whenever we have to make those critical decisions. Also, the risk for stroke doubles every 10 years after age 55. So as people get older, there's a greater and greater risk for the strokes. So we need to be sure, especially when we're sitting down with people that are 55 and over, and let them know that, because, again, knowledge is power as an agent, and we need to be sure we share that knowledge with our consumers. High blood pressure, cholesterol, and smoking, they're all major risk factors for a stroke. As I mentioned earlier, some of these plans don't even ask a tobacco, non-tobacco question, and they don't ask height, weight questions, which we know, the weight can cause high blood pressure and cholesterol issues. So at least 49% have at least one of the three risk factors here, and several other medical conditions and unhealthy lifestyle choices can increase your risk for stroke. As I mentioned, we just have such a good market here, and it's an exciting product to be able to offer to our consumers here. In the U.S., someone has a heart attack every 34 seconds. Every 34 seconds. So we've been on this call now for approximately 15 minutes, and in that time, about 30 people have had a heart attack in the United States. About 720,000 annually. There's about 515,000 new cases. So these are people that have never had any kind of heart conditions in the past that are going to get hit with a heart attack unexpectedly. And the statistics tell us that 75% of heart attack survivors live at least 3 more years. So with the care that we have in the United States, people are living through these situations. And when it comes to the big three, that's good news, that you're likely to survive. The bad news is you're likely to be broke, because only 24% of Americans have at least 6 months of expenses set aside. Most Americans cannot afford to be out of work. They cannot afford to have added medical expenses tacked on to their already high debt that they may have. So 24% are prepared for 6 months or longer. And 55% in a recent study said that they were concerned that critical illness could impact the financial well-being of their family. There are people that are concerned about this. And anytime there's people that are concerned, there's opportunity. And agents ask me, where's the opportunity? The opportunity is to talk to someone about critical insurance, because so many people have not heard of that. And people bought life insurance, and people say, I have life insurance, and that's great. But we can always follow up with the question, but what happens if you live? Because for some people, financially speaking, it's worse off to live than it would be to die if one of these situations happened to them, because of the loss of income and the added expense that they're going to be associated with that. So I wanted to show you just how inexpensively these plans are. And what I did was I just took some sample rates whenever it came to Aetna's program here, because they have a strong cancer, heart attack, and stroke plan. And you can see for 30 to 34-year-olds, you're talking about $10,000 coverage for $8.53 a month. For $20,000, you're looking $17.07 a month. Now we're talking about 50 cents a day. I've heard one man say that he likes to try to sell it by saying, for the price of a cup of coffee a day, you can protect against it. And for 50 cents, I don't know very many places that you can even get a cup of coffee for 50 cents anymore. So when you go to 60 to 64 years of age, you can see $39.32 for $10,000, $78.63 for $20,000. So you can see how much the premiums go up by waiting, because there is a cost to waiting. And of course, once these programs are purchased, the rate locks in. So even at 65 to 69, we see $10,000 benefit is 44.31. Now, Aetna, the reason I put their numbers up is because they can actually go down to 5,000. So we're talking about 5,000 up to a surety will actually go over $100,000 in critical care insurance. So there's a vast array of carriers, and you're going to have some different options and different coverage amounts. But I wanted to show you 10 and 20,000, and the reason I wanted to show 10,000 is because a lot of people maybe on this call sell Medicare Advantage programs. A $5,000 policy may or may not cover an individual's maximum out of pocket for a calendar year. But we all know that the max out of pocket starts over every January 1. So what happens if an individual gets cancer or they have a stroke and it's in October of a year, and they meet their max out of pocket that year? They're still in the process of receiving treatments and receiving care. They roll into January, they have a new maximum out of pocket for the new year. So the $10,000 coverage, in my opinion, just gives an added layer of protection because it will cover that overlap if the treatments were to take place over a 2-year period as opposed to a single calendar year. So it just gives that added protection to an individual. Now, we know that people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are affected by heart attacks and strokes as well. And I put that on there because a lot of people walk by those 30 and 40-year-olds, and they're not even thinking about them as potential clients, potential customers here. But they are, and we need to make sure that we see them as potential customers here, because we also are looking for Medicare sales, a lot of us, when they turn 65. So if we can add a product to our portfolio that we can sell individuals before they're age 65, then they become our customer. It becomes a lot easier to speak to those individuals when they're turning 65, when they're aging in, to talk with them about that supplement or that advantage plan. And most agents are successful when they focus on the awareness rather than selling price. Sometimes as agents we get caught up in selling price, but the reality is the awareness of the need is a bigger deal and will create more success for you as an agent than selling strictly on the price. Because a lot of the customers, they don't understand how the policies work, and they don't understand the risk that's involved with not being insured. And that's where we get to provide the real value. Research from the AACI, which stands for American Association of Critical Illness, shows that roughly half of all critical illness plans sold are to people 45 years of young. 45 or younger are buying half of these policies. Also, half of the policies sold are for $20,000 or less in coverage. That's another reason I chose $20,000 in benefit, is because studies show that half of the policies sold are going to be for that $20,000 or less, and roughly 30% are $10,000 or less. So I've done the research and found that most experts will say if an individual that is still working, that is not Medicare age, they'll say, well, how much do I really need? How much do I really need? Because, everybody wants to make sure that they try to cover as much as they can and fit it within the budget. Most experts agree that they would take whatever their mortgage payment is. If someone has a mortgage, multiply it by 5 and then add $5,000 to that. And that would be an appropriate amount of coverage to cover someone if they had a critical illness. So, in closing on this portion here, I want to say critical illness plans are best sold through stories. My mom always says people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So we've got to make stories, and I don't mean make them up, but we've got to make stories and tell stories that are compelling to the consumer here. Number one, we need to share the statistics. Okay, this is a way to boost your sales, is share the statistics. We've given a lot today, and there's a lot more that you can go online and you can find. You can call me, and we can talk about some maybe that I didn't even put into the presentation today. But give some statistics. Most people are blown away when they realize the statistics that are out there. Secondly, as an agent, we need to identify the gaps in people's current coverages. The Medicare Advantages, or the individual plans, the group health plans that have deductibles, even those individuals who have Medicare supplements. sometimes we as agents tend to think that if someone has a Medicare supplement policy, they don't need this because they've got things covered. That's not necessarily true, especially with the studies that show nearly 70% of expenses associated with cancer are non-medical related. So those people are still a good market to look at a critical illness plan, even though they have a supplement plan. And thirdly, we need to personalize it. And what I mean by that is we need to ask the individual what would happen to them if one of these big three were to happen to you. What would happen if your husband had a heart attack today and had to be out of work 8 weeks? What if you were diagnosed with cancer and you had to go through 20 rounds of chemotherapy? What would happen if you had a stroke and had to be out of work 6 months recovering from that stroke? When we personalize it and people have to visually think about what would happen to them if they were put into that situation, all of a sudden there's some light bulbs that go off and they realize the importance of these types of products, and they're very affordable, very affordable. So I encourage you as an agent to take a close look at the critical illness plans. Now, while I've got you, I wanted to show you something. You're the first ones that have seen this. Tidewater Management Group is announcing their 2017 Top Producers Trip, and it's to Turks and Caicos. And so it's an opportunity to be able to get away and really enjoy yourself with Tidewater Management Group's trips. And you can see the point totals that are here listed at the bottom. The cancer indemnity are all going to be 0.5 points per 1,000 annualized premium, and it only takes 100 combined points between the 4 categories below to qualify for the trip. So I encourage each of you to try to make an effort to qualify for the trips. I also want to tell you that because you've attended the webinar today, you're the only ones that are going to hear about this contest. I've spoken with Chad at the office, and we are going to hold a special contest for agents that are on this call. And if you write 5 critical illness applications between now and February 15th, that gives you a month between now and February 15th. Obviously, they have to be with Tidewater Management Group, but if you write 5, we'll send you a $50 gas card as a bonus. So, again, take advantage of that. That's a $50 gas card. Gas prices are dropping, and that may pay for your gas to go on several appointments. But we want to encourage you to really get out and about and talk to individuals about the critical illness. Also, I want to let you know that there are going to be some face-to-face seminars in North and South Carolina that are going to be coming up in February. We'll be sending out some future emails on that, or you can go to our website, which is tidewatermg.com, and go to /TMG-roadshow, and it'll give you the locations and dates of the upcoming seminars. That's tidewatermg.com /TMG-roadshow, because I'd love to have you come out, and when we do the roadshow, we're going to dig deep, and we're going to talk about other things, but we're going to talk about the brochures, the application process, techniques, so we'll get much more in depth when we get face-to-face. So I'd love to have you as agents come out and attend that with me. And then lastly, I want to say thank you. Thank you for giving me 30 minutes of your day. If you need contracting or have further questions, please call us. You can visit our website. You can email us. For example, my email is just ronnie@tidewatermg.com. If you deal with one of the marketers, whether it be Bobby or Mike or Michael or Chad, whomever you may deal with, just their first name at tidewatermg.com, and we'll be glad to answer any questions. We'll help you with contracting if you have any contracting questions. Be glad to work with you in any capacity. But thank you for attending today. I want to wish you the best in 2016. I hope it's the best year you've had. I pray God blesses you in all that you do. Bye-bye.